Champions League for another season. Arsenal reach the top five of the Premier League and probably have wrapped up second place as they win their final home match of the season. This is today's Arsenal Raw Reaction Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Raw Reaction Show, joining you every single morning after the night before the Arsenal have played their most recent fixture. Of course, this being in the wake of Arsenal's 1-0 win over Newcastle. See, we can do it. We can beat them. It is possible. And Arsenal, of course, with that victory, all but seal second place in the Premier League. I was going to say race. If it's a race, it's not been particularly enthralling. It's not been an enjoyable end to the season. We've had the European forays that gave us hope, but in the league, things have really fallen away quite quickly. And we just needed to get the job done against a motivated Newcastle team that were, of course, missing the very important Alexander Isak. And rather interestingly, after the game, there were some questions surrounding Isak, including the record that Newcastle have when they don't have him in their team. In fact, they've not had him in their team 4 times this season. They failed to win a single game in which Alexander Isak has not started. And then, of course, that record of goal scoring has dropped considerably well, with only 1 goal being scored, which was not from open play. So, yeah, kind of mad, really. The record of what one player can do to an entire team and be basically the crux of them reaching where they need to reach. And of course, they now are in a position where Champions League is not guaranteed for them whatsoever. And they will face Everton in their final match of the season. And that game will indeed take place not at the last, or not at Goodison Park, of course, because that is now done, but at St James's Park as they try and qualify for the Champions League for next season, which is not guaranteed for any of those teams that are still in that race at the moment. But good morning to all of you joining us live in the chat box. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you all listening and tuning in live, and those that, of course, are listening on catch up. Good morning to Sketch and Kirill. We've got Stephen. We've got Mr. Ree. We've got Mohammed and Top Dog. We've got Black Shine. We've got Spearman and Stephen. We've got Jim. We've got Amber Lee, Anton. We've got who else have we got in the chat box this morning? Jack, Easton, Awatundi. We've got Shiv and Shane and Cooler Dude and David T. Lewis. Good morning to you all. Really appreciate you tuning in and listening. It's greatly wondrous to have you here. Do drop a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new around here and those notifications turned on. Because after today, well, and after a week, I suppose we've got another week. I almost forgot we got one more game. It's easy to forget we've still got that one more match against Southampton the last day. But after that game, we will embark upon the Arsenal transfer show. So no more Arsenal news show for a little while. The Arsenal transfer show is coming back for the summer. But let's jump into today's slides, shall we? We begin, of course, with more of a very, I should say, a very important 3 points rather than point here, so ignore that. But yeah, a very important 3 points for Arsenal as they qualify for the Champions League once again for the 3rd season in a row. Yes, it's not been the campaign in the league that we would have wanted. Yes, it's not gone the way that we would have hoped, and there's been a lot of reasons as to why that has happened or has not happened. But Arsenal find themselves now very much comfortable. They're just comfortable with 1 game left. They can kind of ease off a little bit. Yes, they want to get the job done. They want to win that final game. But they got, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't a particularly enjoyable game. At half-time, I was still very much of the mindset that I'd been watching a game that I'd seen over and over and over again. I'd seen that game so many times this season where we just struggled to score goals, that chances were created, chances weren't taken, shots flew over the bar, passes into the box weren't correct. And it was just a real slog. It felt such a slog that we were trying to go through. And while we were slogging to try and get those clear chances, Newcastle on the threat, we made mistakes at the back. We gave the ball away. it was a little frustrating in the first half in particular. And of course, right at the beginning of the game, we went with this lineup of Raya, White, Saliba, Kivior, Lewis, Skelly, Partey, Rice, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, Trossard. It was a team that I think most people would have expected would have started this game. It was interesting, of course, that we saw Kai Havertz on the bench. He came off the bench toward the end of the game, made a cameo. Nice to see Havertz there. Nice to see Havertz in the squad, getting some exposure, getting some minutes. I just think this team needs the season to finish, though. I think this team just needs the summer. It needs the rest. It needs the ability to just kind of relax, recuperate, re-energize, and be ready to go again. It needs reinforcement, all the R's. Rest, re-energize, recuperate, reinforce, recruit. All of them. That's what Arsenal need in this summer transfer window and in this summer pre-season. It's just a chance to go again. But it was good to see Havertz there. Of course, Calafiori came off the bench as well throughout the game. William Saliba going off with what Arteta describes as a hamstring issue. Of course it is. How many more are we going to get? How many more minutes are these players going to have to play? But Kivior had another very good game. Very impressed with him. Calafiori came off the bench well. Jorginho and Kieran Tierney made their final appearances for Arsenal at the Emirates Stadium. They may, of course, play next week against Southampton, but both of those two played their final match at the Emirates this season. And forever, they will be leaving the club, moving on to pastures new. Tierney's expected to go to Celtic. Jorginho expected to go to Flamengo. And will we see them again? That's the question. We will see either of them again at the Emirates, maybe at some time in the future, but they got a very good send-off, a very good bye. And I think both of them have been, there's been positives about their presence at Arsenal. There's been periods where they've not necessarily been able to contribute or indeed have been out of the club like Tierney was on loan. But overall, I don't think we can have too many complaints about those two as signings in the end. I think they were important additions to the squad that have helped us to be where we are today for many, many reasons. Moving forwards to the start of the match, which was a little frantic. Arsenal had a few mistakes in them at the beginning of the game. 2 clear loose passes from David Raya, putting himself under quite a lot of pressure. He dealt with those situations well, but it's hard, I think, sometimes to be really positive about the goalkeeper when the reason why he's making those massive saves is because he's the one who's put himself into those situations by making some silly decisions on the ball. He's had a very good season, David Raya. Yeah, a very good season. But these moments still seem to be within him. Those loose passes, he tries to distribute the ball as well as he can and to put him into advantageous positions and be aggressive with his passing. But those 2 occasions where he gave the ball, loosely, led us into quite a dangerous scenario. And yes, he pulled off a couple of very good saves to help Arsenal to keep Newcastle out. But it's not lost, I don't think, on anybody that he found himself in those positions because of his own doing. But we defended those situations as best we could. We kept the clean sheet. It does move Raya on to 13 clean sheets for the season. And because Nottingham Forest conceded against West Ham, it means he and Matt Sells will go into the final game of the season, both looking to chase that Golden Glove. I'm not sure if the Golden Glove is awarded to the team that concedes the fewest goals, if it is level. If that is the case, Arsenal certainly will win that award, and David Raya will win that award of Golden Glove because we've only conceded 33 goals this season, whereas Nottingham Forest have conceded 45. So it'd be interesting to see how it's decided after both of those keepers end maybe on the same number of clean sheets on the day. We will have to wait and see. Moving forwards, though, and to Arsenal's goal at the start of the second half. And this is, I think, maybe a hint of what we are going to see more of next season. Declan Rice in an advanced position. Arsenal win the ball back high up the pitch. Odegaard gets the ball from Saka, cuts the ball back to Raya on the outside of the box. First time strike, bang. Bottom left-hand corner. Pope can do absolutely nothing about it. And we've taken the lead, really. We've stolen the lead at the start of the second half. These are the types of goals that we have just not seen enough of this season. We've just not seen enough of these goals this season. Shots from outside the box, attempts from further away, lower XG chances being taken. We've not seen enough of these attempts this season. And we've got players like Rice who can produce these types of finishes. His ball striking is excellent. We know this. And it was nice to have a bit of a cutback as well in a bit of build-up, which we have also lacked quite a bit of this season. It was just something I think that gave me a little bit of joy after we've been so bereft of these types of chances, really. So held back from these types of opportunities, to be fair. So very happy that Rice scored the goal that he scored. It was a good indication of what we might see next season, a lot more of. And I want to see more strikes from outside the area. I want to see more intention from this Arsenal team to be riskier. And I want to see other players like Odegaard producing these types of efforts, as we saw at Anfield a lot more. It's interesting that Arsenal have scored 2 big goals that have come from shots from outside the box in their last 2 league games. And I think that's obviously very, very important to point out as well. But Arsenal take the lead and hold on to that lead all the way through, right until the end. It was a few tough moments right at the end of the game. A few dangerous crosses, a corner came in, and a scrap ensued. Dan Burn getting rather irritated. I don't know who with, but I love this photo. If you're an online listener, you need to go and find this picture. And all you need to type in really is Lewis Skelly, and I think this picture will come up. My feeling is that Dan Burn's annoyed that Lewis Skelly managed to beat him to an aerial duel. If you witnessed that in the game, one of the highlights of the season. This season just keeps throwing out little treats at the end. And Miles Lewis Skelly winning a header against Dan Burn will be something that I think I'll remember for a very long time about the young defender. But I love this photo so much because it's just him just laughing at like how serious the situation is players scrapping and he's just there laughing at him. I absolutely love it. I think it's great. I love his personality. He's got front, he's got cojones, he's just got it. He's just got it. He's got it. Whatever it is, he has it. Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I think maybe Kivior ended up getting booked. I'm not really sure. It's very difficult to see what actually happened. But there was a bit after this. If you watch the video as well, Lewis Skelly and David Raya go up to each other and just start celebrating with one another in kind of comical fashion as well. It was great. It was just great. I love these moments. It ended the game in a really good way. We get under Newcastle's skin. It's quite nice to get under the other team's skin. We do seem to get under Newcastle's skin, and I think that showed here. So beautiful scenes. So Arsenal confirmed Champions League qualification for next season with this victory. Liverpool, of course, champions on 83 points, but Arsenal's win takes them up to 71 points, which moves them 5 points clear of 5th place. It moves them, of course, with Manchester, which is important because if Man City were to win their game in hand in 6th place, Aston Villa would move down to 6th, but Arsenal would still be 5 points ahead of Villa. So they are guaranteed to finish above Newcastle, above Chelsea, above Villa. They will finish above all of those teams for sure. Manchester City play against Bournemouth in their next game at the Etihad Stadium. They can move, of course, to within touching distance of Arsenal. They could move up to 78 points, but Arsenal's goal difference is 10 better currently than Man City. So second place is also pretty much wrapped up. And Arsenal's last game of the season, of course, is against Southampton away from home, already relegated Southampton. Man City's last game of the season is away at Fulham, which is not an easy game either. The dream, of course, is that Bournemouth can get a result against Man City, leaving them on 66 points, because that would mean that Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa and Man City would all be on 66 points. What a brilliant season in terms of the top 4 race, or top 5 race. What a brilliant season for that. It's nice we're not in it. I don't really want to be in a race for Champions League, and we've kind of taken ourselves away from that. But I think it's great. I think it's what a season in terms of those teams chasing a top 5, a Champions League finish. There will only be one Europa League spot as well, because Crystal Palace, of course, have won the FA Cup, which means that 7th place will be a UEFA Conference League spot, I think. It depends upon who finishes 6th. If Man City finish 6th, they will go into the Europa League because they've not won any European competition this season already. So 7th place will be a UEFA Conference League spot. Chelsea, of course, could win the UEFA Conference League themselves, which would qualify them for the Europa League. So if they were to finish in 7th place, they would get Europa League. 6th place would get Europa League. And I think then 8th place would get Europa League, which currently, as it stands, are Brentford right now. But Brighton are also on 55 points. Fulham are on 54 points. Bournemouth are on 53 points. So it could still go to 8th place, a European qualification spot. If Newcastle were to lose their last game of the season, which I don't think is anything too mad. In fact, let's have a quick look at the Premier League fixtures across all of those teams that we've got coming up next week. Newcastle at home to Everton. The big game is obviously Chelsea against Forest. That's the game where you could see a bit of an upset. If Forest are to get a result against Chelsea and win, they would move up to 68 points. If Newcastle fail to win, if Villa fail to win, if Man City fail to win either of their last 2 games, then potentially you could see Nottingham Forest sneak in as well. It's still very close. It's all to play for. It's very, very interesting indeed. So very, very interested to see how this plays out and what happens on the final week. It's nice that there is something that is going on in the race for Champions League qualification. But yeah, it's very interesting indeed. Aoife says, don't Palace get one of the champ? Yeah, that's what we just talked about. Palace get Europa League. So it means that 7th spot, as things stand in this table here, 7th place would be a UEFA Conference League spot. 6th place would be the Europa League spot, and 1 to 5 are the Champions League spots. So crazy to think that one of these teams is not going to get Champions League football. In fact, no, sorry, 2 of these teams are not going to be in the Champions League next season. 2 of Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa, Man City, and Forest aren't going to be in the Champions League. But what's perhaps more interesting is that 3 of those teams will. We could have a scenario where both Chelsea and Man City fall out of the top 5 on the final day. If Man City beat Bournemouth, they'll be up to 68 points. It's very unlikely. In fact, it's almost impossible, I think, that they would. But certainly it's going to be very intriguing indeed if Bournemouth manage to get a result against them this week. At least we can hope that is going to happen. Claire says, who gets Newcastle's spot? They won the Carabao. Yeah, it's that would have qualified them for the Conference League. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So yeah, there isn't a Newcastle spot. It's just 6th place Europa League. And then, of course, Palace get the Europa League with the FA Cup victory. And then the next place in the league, if it's not already taken up by a team that is qualified for Europe already, it will be a UEFA Conference League spot. So it's mad to think how many teams are going to be in Europe next season. Because, of course, one of Man United and Spurs are also going to be in the Champions League after one of them wins the Europa League. So you're going to have 6 English teams in the Champions League, 2 English teams in the Europa League, and 1 English team in the UEFA Conference League next season. So, yeah, exciting stuff. It'd be interesting to ask a Nottingham Forest fan how they would feel about being in either the Conference League or the Europa League or the Champions League. Because if Forest get UEFA Conference League, you'd think they've got a good chance of winning that competition. Same goes for Villa. Same goes for Newcastle, teams that don't and haven't won European trophies in a long time. Villa and Nottingham Forest obviously have won the Champions League in their history. Newcastle have not. So it'd be interesting to know if indeed any of them would prefer to be in the Conference League, because it would almost guarantee you'd expect to win that competition. So that's something to think about. But just lastly, before we go to part 2, Mikel Arteta, of course, spoke to supporters after the game. He also spoke to the media after the game in the post-match press conference, where he was quite determined. He was very determined. I'll read you his comments after the game to Sky, because I think these are very interesting. He says, we're very disappointed because we wanted to be here with the Premier League or the Champions League, and it's not the case. Bear in mind, he didn't say the FA Cup. He didn't say the League Cup. He said they wanted to win the Premier League or the Champions League. They were their targets this season. They were the 2 competitions that they wanted to win. They came very close to getting to the final of one, but they weren't close at all to the Premier League. He continues by saying, chasing a dream has its ups and downs, and we need to recognise what we've done. I've seen other teams with 1 or 2 injuries finish 5th, 8th, 16th, 17th. What this team has done, in my own opinion, to sustain the level throughout the season with everything that has happened is incredible. He was asked if the season has tested him more than any other. He says, yeah, and brought out more pride because of the culture that we've set, because of the standards that we've set, that regardless of what happens, you have to seek for the best and do your best. And that's what we have done now. We are there in terms of challenging for major honours. Nobody wants us to be there. We have been there now for 3 or 4 seasons, and I want to take us from there to the next level. And that's going to be difficult. Asked about the summer, he says we need to finish the season, go to the beach for a few days, and make sure the people upstairs do what they have to do. That last line there, very, very pointed. Very, very intentional. People upstairs need to do what they have to do, which is sign the players that we all know that we need for next season. In the press conference after the game, he was asked more about transfers. He said, first of all, we have 1 more game to play and finish it in the right way, and winning in Southampton is going to be really important. And then, go on holiday. It's time to reset, bring the temperature down a little bit. It's been a long, long season to start and think and reflect on everything that we have planned is the right one. Start to make some steps, some action, and come back here fresh on day 1, ready to go again. He kept on being asked about transfers, though, and in particular, there was a question about Josh Kroenke, who had been speaking in the Arsenal programme, but you can, of course, read Josh Kroenke's quotes on the Arsenal website as well. We don't often get to hear from Josh Kroenke, so it was very interesting indeed to hear what he had to say. I'll read you one quote from what he said. He says, today we will give everything to produce the result that confirms Champions League qualification for a 3rd successive season, of course, which we did. We're still pursuing 2nd place in the Premier League for a 3rd year in a row, but we all want to win it. We plan to invest to get behind winning and doing better next season. We're delighted we have our sporting director, Andrea, who will be playing an important role in this. He is part of a unified and strong team supported by the board, who are crystal clear on exactly what we need to do and the way in which we want to do it. The right way, the Arsenal way. I'll read you that first sentence again. We plan to invest to get behind winning and doing better next season. That is not a statement that we've really heard in so crystal clear fashion from Josh as we have seen before. There's no media PR to it. There's no subtle meanings behind it. There's no secondary thoughts around it. We plan to invest. That is what has been said. And now it's a case, as Amberley says, of putting your money where your mouth is. And that's what we are expecting. That is what we are looking to do, is spend. That is what Arsenal want to achieve. And Arteta was asked by Simon Collins at the stand about Josh Kroenke speaking before the game. And he said, yeah, but that's not something new. I think they always back the team, the club, in the best possible way. And it's not going to be different in the summer. We have to be very smart with the decisions that we take. Obviously, we need players because the squad is really short. And on top of that, we are losing 4 or 5 players that are going to end contracts and their loans are finished. So we need to be sharp. Again, very disciplined in what we want to do and make sure that we are strong in the next season. And he was asked also again if whether now being in the Champions League next season makes that you can tomorrow start executing that plan, because financially you don't know where you're going to be if, of course, you're not. And he says, I mean, the plan is done and the time will be dictated by many parties, many circumstances that unfortunately we don't control. But we have great people in charge of that, and they're going to be leading that with the board and the ownership. And as well, make sure that the ones that we have, they feel valued, they feel loved, and we make sure that they want to continue with us in the right manner. And then the whole environment is excited. This is not just about if we make it, because we cannot start a season like that. And I don't want to feel that from day one. I'm going to be very insistent on that. Again, not something I've heard Arteta say before. I've not heard him say things like, I'm going to be very insistent. And Chris here says, same speech every year. You've not been listening, Chris. These are not the words that we tend to hear from these individuals. If you want to go back and find where Arteta has said that he is going to insist on investment, that's what he's talking about. If you want to go back and find me a quote where Josh Kroenke turns around and says, we plan to invest to get behind winning and doing better next season. I'm not talking about things where he said, we want to win trophies, we want to do this, we want to win that. Feel free to go and find me those quotes. But this felt different this time. This felt very pointed. This felt more like a promise that Arsenal are going to go for it in the summer. So you can pull the wool over your own eyes if you want and pretend that this is the same thing that we hear every year, because the reality is that it isn't. This is different. And it feels like he's putting pressure on those above to get the job done. So simple as that. Chris says, I don't believe a thing Josh said. That's fine. That's not what we're talking about. You don't have to. But let's not pretend that this is the same as before, because it's not the same as before. These are different words. These are very different intentions. It's a very different clarity. It's a very different message. So I'm not saying I'm not saying you have to believe them, but let's not pretend that they're the same things that were said before, because they're not the same things at all. It is different. So let's wait and see what happens, and we'll find out in the summer. Let's go to part 2. Your questions and more right after this. Hello and welcome to part 2 of today's show. Thank you so much. So many of you that are tuning in and listening. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you being here for what is the penultimate Raw reaction show of Arsenal's entire season. I wish it wasn't. I wish we were doing another show in 2 weeks' time after a Champions League final, but sadly we're not. It does mean that I'll be able to go to my friend Stack do. But I would rather have been in Munich. I'll say that for sure. I would have rather have been in Munich in a fortnight's time. But certainly it's a very, very, very intriguing time for Arsenal this summer, and I'm looking forward to covering it. And of course, we'll be taking a little bit of a break in June from this show. I'm still going to try and get some shows recorded and put out for you while I'm away. But as I've mentioned before, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break while I'm away on holiday. I can't commit to doing shows every morning at 8 a.m. while I'm on holiday this time. I need to detach. I think we all need a break. And then we can come back like the players, re-energized and ready to go again for next season. So that is what we will be planning on doing after a little hiatus, indeed. So let's tackle some of your questions. If you've got a question, use a capital Q, throw it into the chat box, and we'll be doing our absolute best to go through as many of these as feasibly possible. Let's go to Maximus says, Tom, forgive me for not being too optimistic with these comments by Josh and Arteta. My feel is that old wine in a new bottle until we see things more tangible. I'll hold back my judgment. Absolutely fine. Feel free to hold back your judgment. Feel free for everyone to. I'm holding back my judgment until the end of the summer, because we've been very critical here of the transfers that have not happened. We've been very critical of the January window. I think maybe even went a little bit too generous with our 6 out of 10 from the summer. Both were unsuccessful windows, and we've seen the result of that this season. I think ultimately Arsenal are a need to go big. We know that. Oh, sneezing this morning. Oh, is another one coming? I don't know. Maybe. We'll catch it if it does. Dave says, with all the outgoes, Tom, realistically, we need 7 to 8 new players. Is that really achievable? No, it's not. It's not achievable, 7 to 8 players. I don't think that is achievable, because what will happen is that you will see promotion from within to an extent. I think Arsenal need 5. I think we need 5 players. 6 is like a dream scenario. That 6th player being an attacking midfielder. But backup goalkeeper, defender, defensive midfielder, forward, wide forward. And then I'd love an attacking creative addition like an Eze type player. And then I think the depth will be fulfilled by Max Dowman coming into the side next season. Maybe they'll be a loan. Maybe we'll get another youngster really surprise us and work their way into the team. Maybe it's someone coming back from loan. Could Carl Hein be that player? I don't know. I don't think so. Sambi Lokonga comes back. Reece Nelson comes back. Fabio Vieira comes back next season. Been no word yet on their departures. but there is an expectation that they probably will leave, but we have to wait and see. Jay says, if we're talking honestly about the Cronkies for a large amount of years under their ownership, we have been very mediocre, but since Josh has become more involved, we have improved. I think it's very honest of the scenario. Since 2018, when they took full control of the club, Arsenal have only gone in that direction. That's just a fact. That's just what we've done. We've either gone further in the league or we've gone further in the Champions League, but we have continued to go in that direction. D. Umuna says, Tom, if we need to win something next season, would you be satisfied with the Carabao Cup? Satisfied? I'm not sure if I'd be satisfied. No, I'd like us to lift the Premier League title. I'd like us to lift the Premier League. Temi says, evening, Tom. Osimhen at Galatasaray discuss. I think we've discussed him plenty, Temi. I think you know where we stand. Ernest says, how about a reception for Kieran Tierney? Brilliant. He's just a very well-loved player here. Very liked player here. And we're very thankful for his tenure at the club and wish him all the best. Quite frankly, I think it's a mistake that he's going back to Scotland with all due respect to Celtic. I think he's better than the Scottish Premiership. I think he's a European level player for one of Europe's top 5 leagues. And I think he's making a mistake, but who knows? I could be proven wrong. Anthony says, Tom, a good United win on Wednesday. I can see them going all out for Gyökeres, which is a big problem for us and may divert our plan, which would be Sesko. I don't know, Anthony, what plan A and what plan B is. There's been no indication so far of who is the primary, who it is Arsenal will go for. There's a lot of noise. But yeah, I mean, I saw those links to Brian and Mbeumo yesterday. I should tell you that you should expect to see reports or claims like you saw about Mbeumo all summer. So my understanding, Arsenal are in talks with a lot of people, a lot of players. And just because you see a story that Arsenal are in talks with a player doesn't mean that they're the ones that we're definitely going to sign. Arsenal and Andrea Berta in particular, I hear, is in talks with a lot of different profiles. There are lists, there are dossiers, there are plans that are very broad. And so if one deal can't happen, they're looking at others. It's a multifaceted summer that Arsenal are looking to complete, and that requires a lot of different types of targets and talks to take place. Sirius says, I assume you are the leader of an online fan base. What advice would you give for Arsenal fans next season in dealing with the refs and the media? Do we need to change anything? I'm certainly not leading any kind of online fan base next season, but all you need to do is just, I don't really know anything that can be done, to be honest, Sirius, to change the awful refereeing state from our side. People are still going to go to games. We're going to see protests or anything like that. I certainly don't want to see anything extreme being done. Just continue to be critical, continue to voice your concerns, continue to voice your complaints, continue to ask questions in the places where those questions can be asked. That's really all you can do to change the refereeing side of things. Media, I mean, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best on my side as much as I can from the position that I'm in to be as grounded and objective as possible. But I'm not sure what else that you can do really about it. Jack says Tom's going to do a pre-season. Oh, yeah. I'm gutted I'm not going on the tour this summer. There will be coverage of it on the Football London website, but I have a wedding to attend. Not mine. That'll be a bit weird. But yeah, I'm not going to be in the tour this summer, but I'm looking forward to next season, obviously. Spearman says, Tom, did you hear Rice's post-game interview? I thought he was awkwardly direct about Arsenal and their future transfers. I don't think I did, actually. Rice transfers. Let's have a look. Article continues. Here we go. We'll be back for more, hopefully strengthening the summer. Sign more players, probably going to lose some as well. There you go. It's very pointed. I think that's the feeling, though. They want us to go big. They want us to sign more players. They know how knackered they are. They know how short they are. They know how much has been expected of them because they've not had the players. So, yeah. Dylan says, Fabrizio has said that Dusan Vlahovic is leaving in the summer. Do you think they'll be looking at him, or has that ship sailed? I like him, and he's only 25. He's probably a cheaper option. I think that ship has probably gone this season. He's got 10 goals and 4 assists in 28 Serie A games. He's not had the best of seasons for Juve. I don't think his potential has been I don't think necessarily his ability matched what the potential was expected to be on that front. Maybe it's a situation thing. Maybe it's an environment thing. Nunandinho says, what's your thoughts on Howe's non-committal comments about Isak? Well, I asked him this question. If you heard the answer from Eddie Howe about Alexander Isak's future and him not guaranteeing it, that's because I asked him. I asked Eddie Howe, I said, there's a bit of a narrative between Arsenal and Newcastle, and I think Alexander Isak is a big part of that. And can you guarantee that the only colours he'll be wearing at the Emirates next season will be black and white? And he turned around and said that he doesn't like, or he can't guarantee anything. But what he says, he wants to keep our strongest players, and we want to bring more players in. And it was interesting that he couldn't give that guarantee. He said it'd be nice that, I think, for Newcastle fans, had he have given that guarantee, it would have closed that door. But maybe there is not a guarantee to give because there's not a guarantee there. But I thought it was worth asking him the question, so that's why I did ask Eddie Howe the question of whether or not we should sign. Whether or not we should sign, or whether or not we can be guaranteed that Isak will be a player at Newcastle next season. Let's scroll up a little bit in the chat box. Tulip says City won without a proper striker, and with it, Liverpool won it without one as well. Do you think Arteta's system also needs to be rethought a bit more? I mean, the system has got Arsenal to where they are, which is challenging for titles on the regular, getting now to the Champions League semi-final, but we're incredibly short. I don't think it's a system problem. I think it's a personnel problem. I think we don't have enough depth. I think we don't have enough quality in a number of positions. And I think ultimately that we've had to tweak our system this season to deal with our absences. And I don't think that we want to do that next season. I think Arteta wants to revert. I think Arteta wants to go back to the attacking verve and threat that we have had in past seasons that wasn't necessarily on show as much this season because we lacked availability, fitness, and depth in many areas. And I think that will be the plan for next season. Wazza says, I saw on Twitter that apparently some fans were actually booing Arteta during his speech yesterday, yet everyone in my area was cheering. I didn't hear any boos. No, I think that's people also trying to create a narrative that doesn't exist. I didn't hear any boos. I heard like when he said about the circumstances, I may have heard like a couple like groans, like injuries. But no, I didn't hear any booing. I think that's someone just trying to create a narrative that doesn't exist. Aoife says, if Dalman is integrated into the early cup games, how do we fit him in? Also, Nwaneri into the team while keeping enough quality on the side, especially with all the changes that are coming in midfield and attack. You just give them chances. You just expose them to minutes. You start them in cup games. You give them minutes off the bench. You hope that with the attacking reinforcements that we can bring in, we're going to be leading games more comfortably. So you've got the ability to bring them on in games and give them opportunities and play them. So it's a big summer. It's a big pre-season for players like Nwaneri. And of course, I expect Dalman. I think it'll be a surprise. It's certainly my understanding that it'll be a surprise if Dalman isn't on that tour in the summer. So let's wait and see what goes down. But there's a lot of expectations around our young players and what they're, capable of. Wolves F1 says, if Chelsea missing top 5 and winning Conference League, then also 6th and 7th get Europa League, depends on which place. I didn't think it mattered. I didn't think the teams that win their respective European competitions affected things in any way. Because if they've already got that position. So if Chelsea are so you said it, to be fair. If Chelsea miss out on top 5 and win the Conference League, I think they have to finish. If they finish outside of the, if they win the Conference League and get Europa League football for next season and finish in 6th or 7th, I think it might then push it to 8th, the Conference League spot, because their team would have already got. You have to have a Conference League competitor that has qualified through league position, I think, because Newcastle, of course, have already won the Carabao Cup, which means that league position now will get that Conference League spot unless Newcastle fall out of it as well. But there isn't a really feeling that will happen. It's complicated. We'll know all of it on the final day. We'll know all of it. There'll be plenty of articles coming out this week, I assure you of that. Let's scroll up some more, so I know I've missed some other questions. Jam says, piece of content, identifying the needs of the squad, 3 potential options out of 10 rated based on possible combinations, paint a clear picture, that we are not revising window ratings 9 months later. There'll be plenty of transfer content over the summer. You can be sure of that, 100%. Ronald says, thoughts on Lookman? Do you see him being better than Williams and Rodrigo? I think he could definitely compete with those two. I think you have to look at his numbers and be very respectful of the numbers that he's put in over the last couple of seasons, in particular for Atalanta. Ademola Lookman has been very impressive. So certainly if you're talking about goal scoring wide forwards, you have to put Lookman in that conversation. He has been very, very, very impressive. A few more before we wrap up as well. Jay Collins says, might be a bit too long to explain, but how does transfer actually work? I've been playing Football Manager all my life. I always tell people, go and watch Gunner Blog, James McNicholas's video on how do transfers actually work. The video is called How Football Transfers Are Actually Done. He put this video up a year ago with this, more than a year, I think it was 2 seasons ago. I'll leave a link to it now in the chat box. It should be there right now. Go give that video a watch if you want to know how transfers work, because James explains it very, very well indeed. So there you go. Saeed says, if you had a choice, would you prefer Arsenal sign Ryan Cherky or Nico Williams for our attack? For me, Williams. I think having that aggressive left forward dribbler, creative monster like Williams would be great. I would love to get Williams. I'd prefer Barcola. I'd prefer Rodrigo, but Williams is still a very good option for us during this window. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. JC says, how is 10 teams mad? UEFA made it this way, and the Premier League is the strongest league in the world by far. It's mad because it's not happened, but it's not mad that it is in England. It is England that will achieve it, if that makes sense. Chino says, Tom, do you try to go for Isak if he puts a transfer request and refuses to sign a new deal? Without a doubt. You'd have to try. You'd have to test the waters, because he is the dream option for Arsenal as well. Absolutely the dream option. Scrolling up a little bit more. Carl says, did you see the post by Trossard's wife? It looked like a goodbye message. I haven't seen it, no. Shall I see if I can find it quickly before we wrap up? Trossard. Grateful for all the beautiful moments. You are beautiful inside and out. Yeah. Okay. It does seem a little bit, but maybe we're just reading too much into it. We might be reading too much into it. I don't know. But Trossard's future is not guaranteed. I will tell you that for sure. There's suggestions of talks about a transfer. About a contract. I've heard nothing of that myself. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Appreciate your listenership. I won't go all mushy today. I'll do that after the last game of the season. We've still got one more game left to play, believe it or not. But thank you so much for your kind support. Thank you so much for all of your efforts. They are so appreciated. And I'll be back with you tomorrow morning to round up plenty of transfer news. I'm sure we'll react, of course, to any more of the football that's going on, because there is still more football to be played. But thank you so much for listening. I'll be back with you very soon. Enjoy the start of your week. I hope it's good. I hope it's well. I hope you stay safe, happy, well, and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.